Hello, everybody. It's Monday, January 26th, and Felix and I are here for another episode of Chapo. I can't believe we have to work on a snow day. Can you believe we made it into the office today?
Yeah, can you believe that not only we have to work, but they're not closing down schools. You have to produce content all during the release of the Pendragon cycle. I went to my gym and, I go to a certain, it's a national chain now, but it started in New York, pretty famous upscale gym where everyone who works for the gym, they were abducted as children and they signed lifetime contracts. It's sort of a Sea Org type thing. And so I can go whenever. I've gone to work out on Purim. I've gone to work out on Arbor Day. Like, it's usually, I can get a lift in if I go early enough. But today, during the second week of the Pendragon cycle, the Daily Wire's, I think Game of Thrones beater, it's safe to say, no one was there. But I still have to make content.
Businesses all over America are closed right now for the Pendragon cycle. They can't even get employees to come in because they're saying, no, we're watching, the Jeremy Boring's Arthurian saga on the dailywire.com.
And this so-called mega storm, Harp actually engineered it so that people wouldn't watch the Pendragon cycle. They thought, they'll be too busy shoveling their sidewalks. I do believe in the protocols of the Elders of Zion. I do think that a council of rabbis did affect the weather. But I'm still a supporter of the Daily Wire because of the Pendragon cycle. I'm deeply anti-Semitic, but it's just such a good show that I kind of know what Hitler felt when he found out about Charlie Chaplin.
It's such a good program, though, but I fear, sometimes something is so good, it causes larger social problems. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the state of Minnesota is the only state in America that does not have access to the Pendragon cycle. And let's just say things have been a little crazy over there. And, the situation has got out of hand. The government is killing people who are demanding access to the Pendragon cycle. And I think the time is now to turn down the temperature and, come together and distribute the Pendragon cycle to everyone who needs it. And arrest or kill anyone who hasn't watched the Pendragon cycle or has given it a negative review.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And you know what? Jacob Frey, we started the show to support the career of then city councilman Jacob Frey. Everyone knows that. When Jacob Frey mania was sweeping the nation in 2016, our fortunes rose with him. And we're lifelong Frey supporters. The Frey, we call ourselves. We said, vote Frey to save a life. That was our big slogan. But his means-tested plan of a lottery for low-income children to watch the Pendragon cycle with him, he's going to drive to North Dakota where the Pendragon cycle is available. That's not enough. That's really not enough. We need bolder action.
He's like, I want the federal government to get the fuck out of our city and to bring the Pendragon cycle to the people of Minnesota.
I want to watch the fucking Pendragon cycle. Okay, buddy.
No, by the way, if anyone has, access to the Pendragon cycle, please contact us. All right. Well, to start things off, I think it's very unlikely that anything on this episode will not be consumed by the ongoing killing spree being carried out in Minnesota and the country writ large right now by the Department of Homeland Security. I don't know where to begin with this. I mean, look, we all saw the video over the weekend. Alex Pretti, another U.S. citizen, just straight up executed by the Border Patrol this time. But, under the aegis of their, supposedly immigration enforcement actions in Minneapolis. I mean, I think by now this should be obvious to everyone that whatever justification was given about, Somali fraud or getting dangerous immigrant criminals off the street is long, long past. And as we've been describing it, this is basically a siege of America. This is a war on the people of this country. And it's hard to do episodes like this where we're all trying to metabolize some deeply, unspeakably evil thing that is getting closer and closer and closer to the front door of your, everyone's house. And, it's easy to fall into just the doom, to let the fear overtake you. But I'd like to begin today. And I think it has to be stated at the top here that what we're seeing right now is a huge overplay of their hand by the Trump administration. And I'll note that the killing of Alex Pretti happened the day after probably 100,000 people showed up in the streets of Minneapolis in like sub-zero temperatures to demand that ICE get out of their city. This level of violence and escalation is in reaction to that. And like they were already backpedaling on the Renee Good murder, but like what they did was something that I didn't think was possible, which is that like to commit another murder / execution on video that is somehow even more indefensible than the one that people are already protesting about.
Yeah, I was talking to I mentioned him last episode, one of my a friend that I've known for like nearly 15 years at this point. One of my best friends from when I lived there, from going to school there. And I talked to him the morning this happened, and I had not even seen the video yet. And he's been out at the protest, and he told me that he thinks they didn't initially plan to kill Pretti. They probably thought like, okay, they need to get even heavier handed with people if that was even possible. Maybe even like almost like how the mob does mock executions, maybe like put the barrel of a gun to someone's head. But of course, these people are just unemployable fucking domestic abuser, rapist maniacs who have no control over their own actions. And that was the thing that struck me about the video, was that it wasn't like, you certainly couldn't call this premeditated, because they intended to kill him, but it was just so fucking sloppy and panicked and childish. I mean, the way that they ran away after, that may have been the most striking thing. When 15-year-old gang members kill someone, they stand over the body and they'll run away so as to attempt not to get caught by police or the friends of whoever they killed. But they don't go, oh, fuck, we did it, and sprint off in like 8 different directions. They have all the physical trappings of a paramilitary force. They certainly love to dress and equip themselves for the part. This is the branding that the Trump administration puts on them. But I mean, if there was any actual military force that was this disorganized and cowardly, they would be routed by people with swords within a fucking week.
And I think this is worth stating as well, because like there are now 3 U.S. citizens who have been gunned down, have been killed by these submental criminals who have been deputized into a racial purification death squad. Keith Porter in Los Angeles, and now Renee Good and Alex Pretti in Minneapolis. And obviously, like this has had like a huge impact on our national consciousness. And like I think like in doing especially the last 2, I think the Trump administration has managed to alienate just about everyone, and everyone who was formerly in their political coalition who is not a dyed-in-the-wool Nazi.
Right, all the people that push them over the top.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, like, so that's 3 U.S. citizens just killed for no reason by these fucking criminals. But the thing is, I think you can take like pretty much for granted that what they're doing behind closed doors in their privately run concentration camps is not just killing people, but like unimaginable, unspeakable crimes. Like these are just the 3 that we know about. But like the death count of these monsters is far higher than I would imagine that we're currently aware of.
Right. I mean, it feels absurd to talk about a hypothetical eventual Democratic trifecta after this, though. Even a party under the stewardship of the August Hakeem Jeffries at this point, I think, is going to get that in a walk. But obviously, without prosecuting dozens, if not hundreds, of these guys, with federal death penalty trials, is just an invitation for this to happen again. But I think it would also require a government investigation, and not a 9/11 commission type thing. Something that has actual scale and size to actually figure out some close approximation of the body count here. Because there's no way of knowing. We saw a bit of it last time. It was covered a bit the last time during Trump 1. And it happened under Obama too. But these detention camps are they are run by people who have a much higher propensity towards domestic violence, rape, child abuse than the general population. Now, several magnitudes higher with this new fucking crop. So one can only imagine what is going on in the concentration camps run by Border Patrol and ICE.
Yeah, and like I've seen a lot of people like demanding or fantasizing about like a future Democratic presidential administration, actually holding accountable these people, and by that, or just vengeance, putting these people in jail. And I will say, any future that does, and I'm going to restrain myself here, any future that doesn't involve, at the very least, life in prison for everyone involved at every level is one in which functionally we officially no longer have a government, a state, or laws, or a future of anything other than the ongoing like fascist degradation of all human life. Okay. And I'm willing to be surprised, but like I am really not optimistic about the Democratic Party should they achieve power again in this country. Should we're even allowed to have elections coming up in this country, and I think by the way, these ICE occupations of American cities and blue states should be seen as a sort of dress rehearsal for what they. I'm not saying will do, but are certainly fantasizing about doing to suppress the vote and cancel elections. That said, I'm sort of sanguine about the possibility of the Democratic Party, should they achieve or hold power again in this country. I think like that's going to be it for them. I think it's time to move on like they always do, whether it was the Iraq War, 9/11, any of that stuff. I'm willing to be surprised, but I think we should state that like the blame for this lies, of course, first and foremost and primarily with Donald Trump and his top to bottom criminal administration. And I think we're seeing like the reality of a now almost completely senile man who is only interested in the office of the presidency insofar as he can enrich himself through outright theft and corruption, but also importantly, it allows him to stay out of jail for fucking kids. And he's currently being jerked around or puppeteered by the actual neo-Nazis in his administration, or in terms of domestic politics or electoral calculus, are driving him into the abyss right now. But I will say that more productively, perhaps, blame has to be assigned and laid at the feet of the Democratic Party in Minnesota and nationally for their absolute non-response to this and their utter failure to meet the moment or enforce the laws of this country. And I'm sorry, but the National Guard or local police departments aren't coming to help you either.
And to every legislative Democrat who just not even a year ago voted to thank ICE for their service, voted for these mammoth budgets, not just last time, but every time before this, had no problem with the maintenance and ballooning of the contractor state and the state within a state around DHS. Richie Torres this week put out some hyper-produced video that reminded me of those like those Now This videos where it's like, this 59-year-old man played hopscotch for an amazing reason. And it's because he was raising awareness of middle child syndrome. But it was produced that way, and it was about how he's always wanted to abolish ICE, which I certainly could understand how some people could take that as a positive sign, but I took it as an overwhelmingly negative one. Because it in just the same way that everyone was for Medicare for all throughout all of 2019 and the first quarter of 2020, Kamala Harris, of all people, was a co-sponsored the bill in the Senate. This will become the new position that every, not just presidential hopeful, but anyone who hopes to even sniff at leadership in the party will sign on to. And because there were so few proponents of this beforehand who were actually willing to fight leadership, thinking specifically of AOC and Sanders, there is no mechanism to hold their feet to the fire. These people are not afraid of, in the event that this falls out of the news cycle, that people forget that a year, 2 year, 3 years passes, that someone who still wants to do this will go, hey, remember that fucking video you made? Remember what all of you said when this happened? It just, I can see the writing on the wall. I've seen this movie play out before. I hope that I am wrong. And I hope that through somehow, some way, that whoever gets it next, whoever wins the prize next, is not necessarily a good or ideologically consistent person, but someone who is at least interested in the viability of a political project 4 years after their hypothetical second term and realizes what needs to be done. Because even if you are, again, even if you are just like, all I want is fucking walkable neighborhoods and access to markets for health insurance, there's no getting to there without hundreds of federal trials and these people in ADX Florence. There just is not.
And like obviously, like on this show, like associated with like pointing out the shortcomings or hypocrisy of liberals or lib bashing. And you know what? Like I have to be very clear. I'm not doing that in this position in this because I think liberal Democrats are furious about this, and I think of like the people in Minnesota right now, the constituency of Democratic politicians, like. I said, like, the National Guard or the governor is probably not going to help you. But I have to say, I'm really inspired and encouraged by what I'm seeing from like the people of Minnesota. Didn't get much news coverage, but that rally that they had on Saturday was massive. It was massive.
Yeah.
It was at least 100,000 people. And like they're showing way more like organization and spine. And like, look, I hope I am proven wrong about how the Democratic Party reacts to this. But I'll just note that like the 7 Democrats who just voted to advance the ICE funding bill in the House have now been kind of frozen in this position. And Tom Suozzi is already walking it back and saying, I made a mistake in voting for it. Marie Concentration Camp Perez, we'll see what's going on with her. But I would just note that like those 7 Democrats, it was the 7 votes was exactly what they needed to get the funding done.
Oh, it's incredible how it always works out like that.
Did not whip his caucus for voting against this. The 7 Democrats, like similar to Manchin and Sinema, they play the role of being like the Judas goat to allow the rest of the Democratic coalition to make a symbolic vote that will be like, oh, I'm against funding ICE while the bill passes. But the thing is, those Democrats are now like, if it was just one person they murdered, they like look at the Searchlights Institute or Adam Gentelson's or Trey Easton's tweets over the last week. Because after Renee Good was murdered, obviously there's a lot of polls showing like how out of pocket people think ICE is and how much they would like prefer that this federal death squad be abolished rather than retrained or I don't know, brought to heel in some other symbolic way.
Money.
And I forget it was either Trey or Adam Gentelson. It was one of those Searchlight Institute bozos, but they were like, look, usually like the polling is like sacrosanct to them, but they're like, look, a very horrible thing happened and we can't get carried away on what the immediate poll reaction is. Like, let's stay the course. No one wants to abolish ICE. Let's just focus on retraining them in some vaguely unspecified way. What that will entail, who knows? It doesn't matter. Well, okay, you can say that when it's one horrible incident polarizes national opinion or like, gets people's blood up. But how about 2? How about 3? And the thing is, like now like these Democrats and like their flacks in the media are now frozen in this position. And like the thing is, like people are not going to move on from this. And like I think that vote is going to stick to them. I just like would encourage people to consider how these Democrats function, not just because they're bad Democrats, but in fact they're like the best and most loyal Democrats because they're willing to do an unpopular vote to advance what is the actual interests and goals of the National Democratic Party, which is, the continuance of this kind of shit.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a conversation I had in the middle of last year. It was with a pretty prolific liberal who's actually throughout the course of the Israeli genocide, the Israeli-American genocide, was actually very good on it. And you could tell that this person had sort of a crisis of faith and was negotiating a professional lifetime of loyalty to this party with what he knew in his heart was something they were entirely culpable for. And it was a brief conversation, and you cannot draw too much from those, and a lot can change in even just a few months. But the thing that I kept running into was this idea that, like, okay, you believe these things. I believe you are totally sincere in them. How far are you willing to go to push back against the party if they do not show any signs of changing? And I have had that same conversation with people who are less amenable to things that we believe, but we have some overlap on some things. And there are some people who I think are more likely to do that and some people are less likely. But if anything gives me any type of optimism with this specifically, it is the reaction of the rank and file liberal of America, not the electeds.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily media or independent media, but just the average liberal is fucking furious. And it does seem like they're wising up to the rotating villain act.
Yeah,
to
that's exactly
the
it.
fact that all these people lectured them about how they were too woke, and we have to thank ICE every day, and we all have to volunteer in ICE's cafeteria and make Cinnabon for them. So the America, we will never again lose a cost of living election with a horribly shitty candidate by a landslide of 1.5 points. Not just in their reaction to the Democratic Party, but these people, they have put their lives on the line here. They have thrown their body against the machinery in a way that I think is incredibly admirable. I will be honest with you. I never really got the obsession, the negative obsession with one Will Stancil, because I thought a lot of his I disagreed with a lot of his posts about like the Biden economy and everything. I thought they were stupid, but I also thought this is just a guy. This is just a guy with some silly posts. You could be doing this on your local news' Facebook page. So I really never got it. But credit to him, he's an example of a guy who, like thousands, like possibly millions, is going out there and risking life and limb to try to impede this machinery of death and destruction. And that is a very encouraging thing.
And the thing is, like I said before, that like any future that doesn't involve, like I said, the prosecution and imprisonment of like lots of these people, and I'm talking about Greg Bovine, I'm talking about Kristi Noem, I'm talking about Stephen Miller, I'm talking about Donald Trump, is a future in which we are consigned to just an unending degradation of human life by fascist nihilism. And like that project is like, it would not be inaccurate to call it white supremacy, but I've been thinking about this a lot recently because like the hilarious thing is that there are so many non-white people involved in it. I was thinking of the epic streamer meetup with like Nick Fuentes and, well, all the clown car of like the Andrew. And that like
I was there. Like before you say who do you think filmed it?
Were you mogging Clavicular or whoever the fuck that kid is?
I tried.
I
Didn't
fucked
go
him.
well for me. I got cracked by all those guys.
Yeah. Felix and I have been getting cracked by by the Tate brothers, Sneeko, and the and I was just thinking about this because like I remember I was a while ago. I was like offhanded, kind of a joke, but I remember Brace told me that the project of America is to create a Black Hitler, and Kanye just apologized, so that's a big step back on that project. But I was just thinking about that, and it's just like what we're left with is like these people for whom like it is just like. There's only the in group and the out group, and like everyone's just desperately trying to get in the in group and like have laws that protect them, and the beneficiary of laws that they can use to terrorize everyone else. But the thing is, to these people, and what I'm talking about is like just like the jackals that you will see openly celebrating these murders and just being like, "Fuck yeah, that's what I voted for." Like the out group that they consider their enemy is probably 80% of this country.
Yeah, because every time there's one of these things, whether it is ICE killing someone or like it's a new viral thing, a guy gets into an argument with another guy in Jimmy John's and he's triggered, and he's the new sensation, newsboy Catman. He's the new avatar for liberals. They're always like, this reminds me of every guy who held me back a year. This reminds me of the teacher who was in my reading out loud class that I was in 11th grade.
Not all teachers are benevolent.
Everyone knows a woman like this who calls the police when you masturbate in her garden instead of just being cool with it. We've all had to deal with someone like this, and it's like, okay, so like everyone like, but you.
I know, and like when you think about this is a cause for optimism, because like when you think about these people who are, we all understand these are people not fit to live in a society. Like they're so socially maladroit and underdeveloped that they will probably never be able to like be productive, happy, or like have a family or anything like that. And the thing is, like when you see the way they like this feeds their ego, and how it's this like libidinal pornographic exercise for them when they see their fellow citizens be executed by agents of the state. The thing is, like, for these people, they live in hell. And by that, I mean, like, I'm not literally, but I mean, like, to be inside their skull, to experience life every day for these people is to live in hell. It is to be like in a self-created world of constant misery and fear and paranoia and alienation. And the thing is, like, they will not be content until everyone else feels just a fraction of the fear and self-loathing that they experience every waking moment of their life. And like, and it's this that I want to turn now to Alex Pretti himself.
Before transition to that, I just want to add to that. That's a great point. But they also want is, it is an inherently self-contradictory goal that can never be achieved, right? They want everyone to feel they are in hell defined as a place that is just, God is not there. There's no grace. There is no God. There is no forgiveness. There's no possibility of anything beyond their immediate lives. But they want everyone to feel that, but they also want everyone to accept them and for everything to be a cool party where they are finally the social apex predator, which are just, it's two contradictory goals. So you want to kill everyone, or you want them all just miserable, too afraid to speak, just moving from thatched hut to thatched hut when you and your gang of breakaway pants wearing former kickboxers come to town and commit a sex trafficking ritual. But you also want the social cash of these lifelong enemies, your lifelong tormentors, finally going, you know what? I was wrong about you. I could never be so smart to look up World War II on Wikipedia. But you did that. You're a genius.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, this is entirely self-imposed, too. Like, nobody has ever actually oppressed or victimized any of these babies. Like, this is like, they have chosen to live in hell, and they are now attempting, with, you know, the power of the government behind them, to make sure that the reality of everyone else matches their own, like, internal monologue and fear. Right? Felix, did you see that the new, like, sort of Nazi video that DHS Twitter account was posting that includes that part from the Werner Herzog documentary about Antarctica, where the suicidal penguin just walks into oblivion? And it's like Werner Herzog narrating, you know, like in typical Werner Herzog fashion, the kind of like existential dilemma of existing in this universe and the kind of like utter like suicidal madness that like imbues human life. And they're like, yeah, that's us. That's what we believe in. And like, if you watch that video carefully, they're like, no one knows why the penguin walks away, but we do. And what they're saying is that we would rather die than live in a country that isn't a Nazi hellhole.
People have pointed this out before, but that is the most distinct thing about the Trump 2 social media blitz is the most sort of embarrassing by proxy thing is that it is just, you know, the eldest cohort of millennials and some Korean War veterans who have just gotten are using 4chan language from like 10 years ago. Yeah. That is like bad enough. That is enough. Foolishly, like 20 years ago, I would have thought that would have been enough for like a coalition to invade America, but I guess not. But it's also there is like a insane valorization of suicide in all of it. And look, far be it from me to tell anyone to not just make most of their content about situations where you kill yourself. I think it's great to do in the first 2 minutes of a comedy podcast. But when you are the government of the United States and you're like, this is why we're doing it, it's kind of fucking insane. And not just the fact that it's like the constant valorization of suicide, but the types of suicides they valorize. It's always like, these, again, internet bullshit from like 15, 20 years ago. It's Killdozer or it's Sky King. With Killdozer, you can at least connect it to the general project and be like, oh, he was driven to his breaking point by fussy bureaucrats or whatever. But with Sky King was just a fucking mentally ill man who terrorized a city and abandoned his family so he could like ride in a Cessna before fucking killing himself. What is aspirational about that?
And here he's heading off into the interior of the vast continent. With 5,000 kilometers ahead of him, he's heading towards certain death.
Unable to live with the contradictions of being an adult in the real world. I'll just go for an act of suicidal vainglory that, terrorizes other and leaves my family bereft. very heroic.
Yeah, and by the way, the penguin probably had like a type of syphilis that birds can only get. He wasn't doing that because he's like, oh, we're emperor penguins and the Galapagos penguins have immigrated.
Yeah, no, like I wasn't. We were emperor penguins, but now we've been reduced to serfs.
Yeah, I'm so sick of
the penguins the puffins of a different color are degrading our beautiful Antarctic culture.
I'm so sick of these fucking Galapagos penguins coming on my drift of ice and playing fucking rap on their Bluetooth speakers. I remember when white penguins used to run 7-Eleven. The greatest conservative essay of all time.
Yeah, and like I said, I want to get back to this because, like, in contrast to the type of person we're talking about, I think it is instructive to consider this man who was just killed, who was just murdered, and what his life and death really represent. And like, before I get into this, I want to make clear, like, if Alex Pretti was, you know, a lowlife with a criminal record, it would in no way, shape, or form justify his murder or make his sacrifice like any less praiseworthy, right? But the thing is, like, here was a guy who was an ICU nurse at the VA, who was, by all accounts, beloved by his family, coworkers, friends. He was like someone with, I don't even know how to describe it. He represented, like, he was a fucking Boy Scout. He was, like, in a stereotypical sense, represented like the best of what we tell ourselves about what young men in America should be like. And I think that marks, and like, and his last words on earth before being shot in the back by these fucking pigs was these swine was, "Are you okay?" Because like what got him killed was that he attempted to assist two women who were being pepper sprayed by these fucking criminals, and he was murdered for it. And like, when we think about like masculinity, or like what the right constantly tells itself about what it means to be a man, and like, you would just have to like think that this guy's life was like shames them. It shames them, and that's, I think, ultimately why one of the sort of reasons why he was killed, and why they celebrate his death so much. Because like they can't imagine a counterexample to their lives of squalor and misery, or the idea that anyone with, like, you know, a job, a future, family would stick their neck out for anyone else or exhibit bravery in any circumstance.
And their absolute least favorite type of person, for these guys specifically, the type of people who have joined the Border Patrol and ICE and numerous other federal agencies in the last year, men who will intervene on behalf of women.
Yes, absolutely.
This is if all those posts about, like, you know, you've ran into this person your entire life, you hate them. If they were honest, it would be like, you know, the guy who intervenes when you're trying to grab a girl's wrist.
Yeah.
The guy who notices that you fucked with her drink when she went to the bathroom. The guy who notices loud banging noises in the apartment above him. This is the real type of guy that all these people want to fucking kill.
I think about him and people like him, you know, like when I hear about, like, you know, wealth creators, or like, you know, what we owe to, like, you know, billionaires in our society. And I just think, like, I think an ICU nurse, I think about the people we know who are nurses or first responders. I think about the nurses in the ICU in LA who, like, saved Matt's life and, like, helped him at like, you know, at like one of our most difficult and certainly one of the worst moments in his life. Many of whom I will note were, if not were immigrants themselves, were certainly the children of immigrants. I think about people who do real work, helping others, making sure, like, whatever threadbare strands of civilization and humanity are left in our culture, which are worth fighting for and are worth standing up for. These are the people doing it. And like, they are the absolute enemies of the people who run our government, which, like I said, is like, I think you really have to understand the Trump administration as, like, they are crooks top to bottom. Like, I know that's a simple thing to say, but these people, like, are not fit for real employment. They're not fit for real human relationships. All they know is how to steal, intimidate, bribe, torture, kill. That's it. That's who these people are. They have nothing. They have nothing. And, you know, like I said, they were already backpedaling on Renee Good. Like, JD Vance was like, you think after Renee Good and him walking that back, he would have, like, chilled out this weekend? But no, everyone's getting the Israel treatment now. Like, anyone who resists you is a terrorist, no matter what they did. Yeah. And like, I remember when Renee Good happened, I said, like, I hope no one will lower themselves to, like, be debating different angles of the video. But when that killing happened, you'll notice the reaction on the right was all about parsing various freeze frames or different angles on this video so that they could conceivably justify, like, oh, the wheels spun, or, it's clearly like, she was trying to kill him with the car, blah, blah, blah. You'll notice this time around, not a single person was making even reference to the video because, like I said, it's even more indefensible. They disarmed him and then shot him in the back on the ground 10 fucking times
and ran away. They ran away. Even if you were the most nihilistic person who's trying to make a highlight reel of all these fucking murders to give yourself some sort of libidinal thrill, you could not put this one in. It's too humiliating.
And what I will notice is that, like, rather than appealing to the video, most of them just tried to say, just based on nothing, that he was brandishing a gun or that he menaced these officers with a gun. But, like, there's really nothing there. I saw, what's his name? Mencius Moldbug. Curtis Yarvin was just like, when he clearly brandished the weapon, and like he couldn't keep up that facade for more than like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah. By the way, under these same judicial standards, we can arrest Curtis Yarvin for the murder of his wife. His wife heard him talk for like 15 years, and her body had the natural reaction to kill her by giving herself cancer. Curtis Yarvin, you are going to the gallows for premeditated wife murder. But anyway.
And I'll bring this up because, like, he's considered one of the leading intellectual lights of the new right wing. I don't know how to describe him other than a submental coward who can't even who like tries to commit to an outrageous lie for a minute and then immediately folds because he's like, it cannot even be sustained by his like limp-wristed fucking sophistry.
Did you see that profile of him where just like every single day the reporter spends with him, he not only cries but makes a point.
We covered it on the show.
Yeah,
like, but he went to that French Nazi's house and then like cried in front of him, and the Nazi was like, "Could this pussy get out of here? I'm fucking." Like,
he could not
get out of my house.
Fucking crying. It was the most fucking unnerving. Like, to quote Chuck Rhodes Sr., hide your shame from the fucking world, pal. Jesus fucking Christ.
I do have some of my favorite reactions to this. And like, there's a couple people on my Dishonor roll that I want to talk about. But Felix, in light of what we were talking about with J.D. Vance the other week being like, Secretary of Health, you've got the cookies and cream ice cream on the food pyramid.
The most dishonorable post ever made.
In like adding to that role of dishonor, my favorite reaction over the weekend was, that guy Sohrab Amari.
Another guy who cracked me.
He's cracked all of us. Everyone at Compact Magazine has cracked me.
Yeah, you know that type of chlamydia that makes you blind from not treating it? I've got it. It's from him.
By the way, on the topic, like, who the fuck is Compact Magazine for? Because like, this is a weird thing with Sohrab, is that like, as far as I can tell, he's gone through about 4 or 5 different religious conversions as an adult, and like, and then an equal amount of political conversions as well. Because like, for a while there, he was like, Compact Magazine is like, oh, we're like, New Deal Democrats or something, or like, as best as I can tell, Compact is like, the correct way to be left wing is to be right wing. In fact,
yeah,
that's not. I don't even know what their deal is, but like, Sohrab, like when Renee Good was killed, like the day of, he was just like providing wise counsel to Democrats and liberals by being like, look, I know you're outraged about this, but please understand this is a 70-30 issue, and you're going to find yourself on the outs of like the vast majority of mainstream Americans. Well, he was correct about that, just not in the exact opposite way as this issue went out. And people have been holding that over him for the week, and he's been squirming in quite a uncomfortable manner.
By the way, I think whenever this iteration of this whole thing ends, I think Catholics, they're going to become like Zoroastrians, and they're going to go, no proselytizing. No one can convert to this religion anymore. It's done. If you were born Catholic, you were chosen. No one can join anymore. Everyone else, I guess you're fucking grandfathered into Sohrab until you read the Nicene Creed and you go, this was based.
So, per the example of J.D. Vance's utterly shameful ice cream posting in the midst of, slandering murder victims from his Gestapo, shout out to my friend Jake, who described ICE as GED Stapo. But anyway, So Sohrab has been like, squirming nervously because like I said, in light of this other execution, which like I said is like somehow inconceivably even more grotesque and indefensible than the last one. His post this weekend was like, "Hey everybody, I think I'm going to watch Rashomon tonight." It's like, who gives a fuck? Shut up. You know that movie about how a rape and murder can be viewed in different ways by different people? Interesting choice, Sohrab.
That is, but like, again, when someone is trying to do one, like, it is just, they want to kill themselves. They don't even want to kill themselves in a painless way. Like, usually
turn the temperature down. I think I'll be watching a movie by one of the great masters, Akira Kurosawa. What do you guys think about that?
He thinks he's so fucking smart for that one. Like, everyone's calling him a fucking idiot. People who have known him his entire life are like, I can't believe you. I'm never talking to you again. You're a piece of shit. How can you justify this? He's getting screamed at by all angles. Compact is they're trying to find like a different Soros heir that no one knows about yet to give them more money.
Soros heir to give them another $10
there's an
million.
included Soros no one knows about that has only ever spoken Esperanto. So he will be able to read those articles and think they're good, but and fund that magazine for another year. But he went, all right, puppets dance, and it's just like no one like this is your entire life. So Rob, this is it. You have tried to carve out some space for like left-wing national conservatism that has a lower organic propensity among American voters than even neoconservatism. Yeah. Everyone thinks you're a fucking idiot. No one thinks you're going, time to relax with my true love, cinema. No one, like...
Movie mindset, baby. Movie mindset.
Who are you fooling, asshole?
Felix,
it's amazing when people. I love that people do this too, where they'll get yelled at and they'll post a picture of where it's from their perspective with their legs crossed and a drink up in front of a pool and being like, "Oh, I'm really upset right now," and it's like, yeah, you because you took this picture, you're still thinking about it. You're still thinking about it. You went out here and thought, I'll show them.
It's like JD and Sohrab, this would be like the equivalent, right, Felix? Like if you murdered someone and there was like video of it, of you committing a murder. And then everyone gets
just
mad
a
at
really
me.
really sloppy, bad looking, like I beat someone with my Nespresso machine for like a really stupid reason. Like some guy came in to fix my AC unit and was like, that's actually a really bad setup for DCS. And I was like, fuck you!
Yeah, so like, for the purposes of this analogy, like, yeah, Felix has committed a murder. It's on video. It's grotesque. We've made no statement about it. And as far as you know, like, you're still on the show. Everyone's mad at me and Chris. Our mentions are just being like, how can you continue to do a show with this murderer? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, repent now. Like, this is disgusting. And then I was I just dropped a tweet that was like, methinks I will be diving into the catalog of one Walter Hill this weekend. Or just be like, the first two seasons of Next Generation get a lot of flack, but there's some pretty good episodes in there.
Yeah, there's a video of me in the elevator in my building, and I am trying to attack one of those advanced cribs or advanced strollers with a baseball bat, and I get stopped by like a group of guys, and I pull out a gun and open fire on all of them, and miraculously the baby survives. But it's like a quadruple murder, and I get off on a technicality because I geniusly tell the cops I only speak Esperanto. I'm the occluded Soros. And they go, oh, we don't know how to Mirandize him. I get off. Everyone's yelling at me. And then I post a picture of a steaming hot mug of hot chocolate and the book Aragorn. And I'm like, getting back into this one.
Just be like, hunker down for the big snowstorm this weekend.
Literature. Just reading something fucking embarrassing for anyone older than like 14.
Anyway, that's what that shit looks like. A little piece of advice from me to Compact Magazine.
Do you think Sohrab is watching the Pendragon cycle?
Absolutely.
He probably thinks he's too good for it. The Pendragon cycle. I finished Aragon last year. I'm reading it at a 9th grade level.
Next up are my favorite reactions. Weird Mike Cernovich. We haven't talked about him in what feels like years. But Weird Mike came through with a great post from just yesterday. This is what Weird Mike writes. High IQ people don't respond well to shrill noises, from smoke alarms to those hearing loss causing machines that terrorists are using against ICE. To be honest, those things should be considered a violent weapon. They damage hearing for life. And I was like, what the fuck is Mike talking about? And then I realized he was referring to the hearing loss causing machines that terrorists use. He's referring to whistles.
Also, coincidentally, the thing you blow around a rapist. Wonder why he's against those. It's a lifelong grudge. Hey, have you ever noticed how these things always ruin your plans? We all hate these things, right?
And leaving aside calling whistles hearing loss terrorist weapons, the notion that ICE are high IQ people, like if high IQ people are bothered by whistles, I don't think we need to worry about anyone currently employed by Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, these people are like, this was the first time any of them had ever filled out a W-2. Like, who are we fucking kidding here? Like, Jesus fuck, man. I know I'm not the most employed guy around, but come on.
And last but not least, JD, he chimed in yesterday and said, this is the little story he shared. He said, when I was in Minneapolis, I heard a number of crazy stories, but near the top of the list.
Okay, King Vaughn.
But near the top of the list, a couple of off-duty ICE and CPB officers were going to dinner in Minneapolis. They were doxxed and their location revealed, and the restaurant was then mobbed. The officers were locked in the restaurant, and local police refused to respond to their pleas for help, as they've been directed by local authorities. Eventually, their fellow federal agents came to their aid. This is just a taste of what's happening in Minneapolis because state and local officials refuse to cooperate, blah, 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 blah. But like, he says, like, this is just a taste of what's happening. Oh, some like fat asses had their meal ruined. Oh, did anyone shoot them in the head? Oh, sorry, my condolences. Yeah. This is exactly like the same tenor as the ice cream posting. He's just like, here's just I know what the nation is consumed with these horrible snuff films that we're currently promoting and slandering the murder victims, our own murder victims, like a fucking serial killer. But like, here's a much more harrowing story. Some fatties got in trouble at the buffet.
I mean, yeah, for him, that is the most horrifying thing. But
I'll take whatever's normal.
He can have the most normal side. It reminds me so much, again, the parallels to Israel are endless here. But this specifically, this is just a taste. It reminds me of how Israelis would go, well, we have secret footage of October 7th that proves not only did they do all the bad stuff that we say they did, but it's even worse stuff that we won't even mention because it's so horrifying. And everyone knows we're very squeamish about violence, famously.
Yeah.
Like we faint at the sight of blood. So we're not putting this out because we respect the victims and everyone so much. But if we really like you, we will show you the horrifying snuff films. And it's like, okay, if you're getting like you're constantly complaining about what an unfair, trial by public opinion you're getting. You're bitching about how no one knows the real story. And you would think, okay, if this is just a taste and there's something even worse than, the confrontation at the Blue Door Inn, that you would immediately jump on it because, just like with Renee Good, you've wasted no time in digging through this guy's life, trying to find fucking anything that would justify murdering him in the street and failed. So why would you, why would you hesitate to go beyond just giving us a taste? Is there a 2 sample minimum at JD's Cafe?
Many people are pointing this out, but like we are seeing now like Americans get the it was a Hamas hospital treatment, like I said, like anyone who resists them is a terrorist by virtue of the fact that they were resisting them. Anyone standing close to them also reasonably suspected of being a terrorist just by their general vicinity to the crimes being committed by the state. And you know what, like how about we? I mean, I'm not going to. No need to read the whole thing, but a perfect example of this is Thomas Friedman's column yesterday in the New York Times. Minneapolis and Gaza now share the same violent language. You might expect from that headline that he would be comparing ICE to the Israeli military, but no, in fact, he's comparing them to Hamas. And it's just like, gee, when I you got the right part of the world, Tommy, but I think your analogy is maybe a little bit off.
Well, I mean, as we know, ICE trains with Hamas. Several American police departments too. And I love. You know what I love about Friedman though is he was writing this, and when he sat down to do it, he really thought, like in his heart of hearts, he was like, I am going to turn the temperature down here.
Yeah.
Everyone is looking to me. I am going to frame this in the right way. I'm going to get this country back on track. I think that is I think most people, most article mongers are just wretched people. And Tom is too, but there is something like kind of weirdly innocent about him where he really does think that he's helping with his shitty articles.
I know. I guess I'll just read a little bit of it. He says here, every day now I sit at my computer and ask myself, what is there left to say about the two news stories I care about most? One is unfolding
you'll find something, Tom.
One is unfolding in my hometown on the banks of the Mississippi River. The other is unfolding on the west bank of the Jordan and on both banks of the Wadi Gaza.
We're off to a great start.
Yeah. Yep, there are rivers in both countries, believe it or not.
One's in my literal hometown. The other one's in my spiritual hometown.
Which video should I linger on longest? The footage of Renee Good shot in the face by an ICE officer in Minneapolis while she was clearly trying to evacuate the scene? Or the video from Saturday of federal agents shooting Alex Pretti, an intensive care nurse, after he tried to help a woman who was being pepper sprayed? Or perhaps the video from Wednesday showing the aftermath of Israeli strikes that killed 3 Palestinian journalists, among others, in Gaza. The journalists had been working for a committee providing Egyptian aid and were documenting its distribution at a displacement camp. Or perhaps the videos of Hamas executing rivals and refusing to yield, despite the fact that the war the group ignited on October 7th has resulted in nothing but catastrophe for Palestinians.
Oh, one of these things is kind of not like the other, specifically.
Because,
Hamas executing these fucking ISIS collaborators who were stealing food and killing people. Like, fuck off.
And spoiler alert, the comparison to Hamas, ICE to Hamas, is that they hide their faces. And it's I don't know, Thomas, I don't know if you noticed this recently, but anyone who works for the Israeli government is also hiding their faces. You've seen those photos where they stand with their backs to the camera when they're arresting someone, because those are pariahs in the entire world over. Yeah.
In their official portraits, it's with their backs turned because they'll be arrested in any country with any semblance of law and order.
And as you rightly pointed out, ICE literally is trained by the Israeli. It's
yeah, so, what? Tom, you let me down,
brother. Tom, do better.
What do you think? What do you think it would take to I don't have high hopes. I don't think I could get Tom to join. Any of my anti-NATO group chats, but just to get him to be okay, Qassam Brigade's the Band of Brothers. What do you think it would take? Because I think it's actually kind of possible. It would just require kidnapping, a Patty Hearst type thing.
I don't know. Get him to marry some billionaire who's a Palestinian or something, or Shia or something. I don't know.
A Hadid sister.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Hadid family. Just one of them should marry Thomas Friedman.
Yeah,
and as long as the comparison is just sitting out there, it's a thought I've had quite a lot over the last couple of weeks. I've mentioned it here. It's certainly not a novel thought, but in thinking about what we're seeing now and the way our own government is using Israeli tactics to justify their murders and their exclusively undemocratic apartheid policies of racial purification and ethnic cleansing, I really feel for my entire adult life, it's always been there. And I think to the extent that no matter what time you became politically aware in this country, you can point to examples. But I really feel we have slowly been unlocking the gate to hell at so many points in my adult life. And every bit, when most of this was done overseas. And I feel the last step in unlocking that last gate really was the genocide of Palestinians over the last 2 years. And seeing our entire government, both parties, sign on wholeheartedly, underwrite all of it, and refuse to change even one iota. whether it's not holding anyone accountable for the Iraq War, to this, it's just like that road to hell is now just like a freeway, and we're like well on the way. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but like if you think these two things aren't connected, or you think one is a distraction from the other, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, you can draw it as far back as Iraq, any other military adventurism before that, or as close as the American-Israeli genocide in Gaza. But there's just no compartmentalization of this. If a human life is worthless enough to be written off as a necessary cost, either for the main stated goals of your political program or as a unfortunate side effect, something that you needed to vote for because it was unpopular at the time, or it's just simply too difficult to stand up against, there is nothing preventing people from extrapolating that equation. There is a knock-on effect that devalues human life wherever it is. I don't think there's any single reason for why America has so many more mass shootings than other places. There's certainly a greater availability of firearms, but there are other places where there's also very high rates of gun ownership. But it seems to be a very specifically American crime. And I don't think you can extract one from the other. It is almost like it is a pantomime of what our soldiers and contractors do abroad. And you cannot be peppered with this culture every single day of your life where the bombings of cities, these massacres are set to music and played like action movies for people. And the death count is obscured, celebrated, or written off as just an expensive lesson. And not have it, at least with people who are already kind of wacky, make them do something like this. I mean, if you're instructing them that human life is this worthless, that is what you are going to always get.
I know that's what I mean about a future in which there is like nothing but like a fascist and nihilistic degradation of all human life, and like I think that's what we're seeing here. But I like, on the one hand, that's cause to despair. But like, as I would like to reiterate, as I said at the top of the show, you are also seeing a much larger counterweight to that right now, in terms of the people of Minnesota and people all over this country that are out in the streets, that are protesting, that are standing up for like not just their constitutional rights, but like the very concept of like the meaning and value of human life, of their neighbors, of their community, of themselves. And like I don't think we should lose sight of that or despair, be too despairing about this. I think it has to be confronted soberly and with clarity. But like that would include not just like an intense, like an only feeling of futility or depression over how bad this all is. Because like I said, like I think the people in Minnesota are showing the way right now. And like I know that there's like I don't expect them to get much help from their own government or the people they vote for, but like you shouldn't expect it, and like they don't need it, And like I just have to like reiterate my admiration for everyone in Minneapolis and Minnesota who is standing up to this shit right now.
Well, 100%. And I feel very confident in saying that there are more people who value human life and are disgusted by this, whether it happens here, in Gaza, in Iraq, or anywhere, then there are people who are animated by it, or even just passively accept it. And I do feel like, for once in this country, that the people who are disgusted by that are not just going to go along to get along, as has always been the case here.
Yeah. Obviously, an issue that's come out of this latest killing is like the Second Amendment and where that's left, where that leaves everyone. Because like, Alex Pretti had a legal permit to carry that gun. And like that gun is the reason, the excuse that they have for murdering him. He did not take it out. He did not even touch the gun at any time during this interaction. And look, like I was raised in New York City. I'm not a gun guy. I'm probably never going to be a gun guy. Like to me, it's just like carrying a gun, owning a gun is a kind of like psychic oppression that doesn't sit well with me personally. I'm not judging anyone else, but I think it should be clear now that like most libertarians and Second Amendment type people, of which like I would say like 10 to 20% of them are like sincere, thoughtful people on this issue. But the other 80%, I'm sure, like, I'm not telling anything new to anyone listening to this show. They do not believe for a second that owning guns is some sort of like bulwark or check on a tyrannical government. They view it only as an exercise in their own tyranny over others. And they view having guns and having guns everywhere in this country and the use of guns against people as basically a check on democracy, not on tyranny. It's an exercise of their own tyranny, not anything like brave or courageous or standing up against like agents of the state who also have guns. Because I mean, I think it should be clear from the reactions to this that like most of the gun people in this country are thoroughly on the side of ICE. And that's not all of them. I know some of you are probably gun people, and like I said, like I admire you. Do you stand up for what you believe in? But like the vast, like libertarians writ large, they only oppose the state in so much as the state is a check on their exercise of exploitation and tyranny over other people.
I am not a huge gun guy. I was introduced to them when I was a little kid, when I went to camp, and I really took to riflery and trap shooting. I tried to buy a gun I didn't even get to that stage. In New York, someone who's like normal has to write a letter to like the police saying like, this guy's normal. He's not going to do anything nuts. And I wanted to get a gun for the best reason to buy one, so I could play with it while I was working at my computer. I wanted to learn how to do all the tricks that Revolver Ocelot did. I thought it would be cool. I wanted to get a revolver for that purpose. And then I would, of course, get Naked Snake's M1911. But I wouldn't have the boss to metaphorically castrate me by ripping it apart and riding off on her horse. So that would be great. But, the guy I asked, like, hey, you're the most normal guy I know. Can you write this letter saying he's not going to go to the news and order them to, read an 18-minute long speech he prepared about Young Money, Cash Money? And he's an anti-gun guy. So he went, no. And I went, I understand that was the end of that. And the gyms opened anyway soon after. So, that saga didn't continue. But, I think a lot of guns are cool. I would much rather own a plane. And I think a gun is just a stand-in for a plane for me. But I like shooting them. I've always liked target shooting.
I like shooting them too. I mean, they are fun. It's just like, I'm not.
But that is like the thing that really turns me off is like how there's just so many people own guns in this country that it's hard to like draw a single type of person. But like the most vocal gun rights people, they are often my least favorite type of fucking person, which is exactly like the people in Texas who brag about being independent cowboys and then fucking bow and scrape and sign a pledge that they will never insult Israel. The gun people are the same way for the most part. Fuck the feds. You want to do what you want? I'll put a fucking switch on my Glock. And then it just, every time something like this happens, they feared for their lives.
Yeah.
It really fucking turns me off from the whole thing. And it makes me want to commit instead a cryptocurrency scam so I can get what I really want, which is a decommissioned F-16. And you try to shoot me out of the sky. You have a Maverick heading at your house.
We talked on this episode about like the sort of the demonic reaction to these murders and the people who openly celebrate them. But like, I think more insidious and I think worthy of comment is sort of the I don't know, the ways in which like the sort of establishment media is attempting to sort of massage the way they present this. And like, for instance, in the New York Times, I just want to find this real quick. It says, this is their account of the killing of Alex Pretti. When it says here, an agent had already removed Mr. Pretti's gun when two other agents opened fire, shooting him in the back as he lay on the ground. Federal officials sought to portray a 37-year-old Minneapolis resident killed by Border Patrol agents on Saturday as a domestic terrorist, saying he wanted to massacre law enforcement even as videos emerged that appeared to directly contradict their account. Well, that's that. How generous of you. They appeared to contradict what they were saying. But I want to point also to the Wall Street Journal in an editorial that said, I want to read this. It says, videos aren't always definitive, but this is how it looks. And then and it's clear all these editorials are saying that like DHS and the Trump administration are directly lying about the circumstances of these killings. But within that, they attempt to constrain it in a certain way where it says, they say, the Wall Street Journal writes, videos of an event aren't always definitive, but this is how it looks to us. Pretti attempted foolishly to assist a woman who had been pepper sprayed by agents. And that to me is what is so insidious here, because like what they're implying is like, of course he didn't deserve to die. Of course the shooting was unwarranted. But he was sort of complicit in his death because he foolishly attempted to come to the aid of a woman who was being pepper sprayed by these murderers. And I think like what they're trying to say is like, you're right to feel outraged by it. But if that outrage transforms into actions that lead you to directly resist or confront these, Gestapo forces in the streets of your community that are victimizing your friends, neighbors, colleagues, coworkers, etc., that's foolish and suicidal in a way, or sort of misplaced or dangerous or radical or something.
And not suicidal in the cool way, like when you steal a plane and kill yourself for no reason. I saw someone who compared the interplay between these more traditional Wall Street Journal style conservatives and the Trump people, sort of like Mike Ehrmantraut yelling at Walt before Mike is killed.
Yeah.
And it's a great analogy because it is just two different interpretations of a criminal enterprise. And this journal editorial and the reactions from most of these establishment conservatives who predate the Trump movement, they're particularly harrowing because of the skinwalker nature of it, compared to just the raving, stupid mass shooter who is eventually put down by police that the Trump people are. These are serial killers who operate over decades and are never caught.
Exactly.
It's sort of more harrowing because they go, look, we know it's to you people, it's upsetting when a woman is in agonizing pain, but pretend you're us and just get hard and don't do anything.
Yeah,
when that happens.
Yeah,
and they're running the old W or HW playbook that they would run for much less out of control scandals for this, and it's really just it is an impossible needle to thread, because the only way you actually can defend this is if you go, hey, fuck this guy. It's awesome we killed him. There's no way to defend it on the merits of like, hey, look, I don't like summary executions in the street. I'm a fucking Bill of Rights guy. No, that path is closed. That is completely closed.
All right. Well, I have one last story that I would like to address today, and like this is tangentially connected to the events transpiring in Minneapolis. But like, I would say that it's been a heavy episode, so I'd like to at least close with a look at the lighter side of the news. This comes courtesy of some intrepid reporting being done by Daniel Boguslaw, but it would appear that Washington State Representative Marie Glusenkamp concentration camp Perez was a mids dealer in college.
Yeah, you never want to see this happen in reverse. It's the first ever Chapo NGO. We are offering re-education, hypnotism. We were trained by Scott Adams. You can check our instructor lineage on the webpage, and brainwashing to, if you've worked for the third way, even if you've been an elected official who is third way, we will subject you to mental torture and MK Ultra and all types of things. So you will become a mids dealer because we believe in rehabilitation.
Yeah.
But watching this happen in reverse, you never want to see it happen in reverse. It's really sad. It's really fucking sad.
Daniel's sources, I'm just going to quote from one of them. They were texting him. It says, bought many ounces of STEMI mids from Madam Congresswoman. And he says, not at ounce, but when I was without my druthers, I'd get ounces of shake from her. Daniel says, and you'd say it was witch's mid, 100%, the middest of mids in a like court sandwich bag, just straight leaves, nasty stuff.
Oh my God. It's great mids when the dealer doesn't even really weigh it out.
He's like, just take it.
Because they're like, whatever.
I'm just trying to get rid of it. I'll pay you to take this Ziploc bag off of me.
Yeah. The dealer doesn't have a scale of any type.
Yeah.
They're just telling you to how many do you want? 2 handfuls? 3?
Okay. Now apparently this took place at Reed College in Oregon, which is like known as a very like, crunchy weirdo school. It's a good school, but like it has a reputation for being like crunchy, quirky weirdos go there. Apparently, she was still dealing mids to kids at Reed 2 years after she had graduated. And apparently someone has a photo.
Awesome.
Someone has a photo of her that she would show up to sell these giant bags of shake on a bicycle that I can only be described as a reverse penny farthing with one very large back wheel and then a small front wheel.
Oh my God. This is like, when I was like 21, 22, I would always try to like, I would become friends with like elder millennial hipster girls, like who are around MGP's age, and they would always just be like, "Oh, you're so nice." It would never turn into anything. She would have made me so sad in the summer of 2012. I would have been like, "She's so cool. She's a drug dealer. Her bike's so cool. I wonder, does she know about Interpol Mind Over Time? It's a hidden track." And she'd be like, "Yes, I'm 31." And I go, "Oh."
I gotta find this. So someone in my yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Like okay. Here, I'll send you guys the photo of her on the bike. Just like I can imagine her like on this bike, but like it has one of those like old like turn of the century car horns that are like awooga, mids for sale, seeds for sale. So I reposted that and someone replied to Daniel Boguslaw and she said she was a zoo bomber. And I was like, okay, that piques my interest. And apparently, zoo bombing refers to bike punks in Portland would get kids' PMX bikes, meet at 13th and Burnside Sunday night to smoke and joke about their injuries from the week earlier, then ride the Max train to the top of the hill where the zoo is, bomb down, and repeat. Very Portland, Oregon coded. But I have to say, when someone referred to Marie Concentration Camp Perez as a zoo bomber, I initially thought she had set off an explosive device at a zoo, but not.
Oh yeah, she was
like not because she was like an animal liberation front. She was setting off a bomb to like to kill a gorilla specifically, like an assassination of like a bear or something.
She was like the exact adversary to the ELF. Like, I love the idea. I love the idea of like a weather underground that's like, fuck orangutans. We hate them. You know what I love about this whole, and by the way, credit to Daniel Boguslaw. I think an unsung MVP of the last few years of the show, because he has a knack for getting stories that are both like 80, 95% of Boguslaw's stories that he files are like something horrifying about like the contractor state, like a NatSec state thing that's like no one else would have dug into, like great reporting. And then like 5% is like this. So it's really like the perfect cat. I think we have done like 5 million stories sourced from him over the last few years since he's been a reporter. But I love this one because it's like, how much money could she have been making? You know, like what like on a, again, however she was getting the mids, you know, who was selling it to her, the profit margin has to be what, like $75 per kilogram sold. So she wasn't like doing it to make ends meet. She's just like maybe it was like a way for her to make friends.
It's a way to smoke for free. But I guarantee you, she was probably losing money on this as well. If I had to guess what was going on here, look, she likes to say she's a farm girl. She's from rural Washington, and by that it's like a suburb of Seattle or wherever the fuck she's from. Don't care. Don't correct me. My guess is my guess is like as a sort of a corked up Reed College, rural Washington person, she probably knew someone who had like a weed farm.
Yeah,
and like they were probably friends with them, and then like when they bag and cut, they probably let her sweep up the floor like a barbershop and just like push all of that dirt into like a giant garbage bag that she then sells to college kids.
Oh, she did the boomer thing. Like she went into the weed farm and started sweeping to show them what a hard worker she was.
They paid her in the dirt that she swept up on the floor.
And all she had to do is pick out like the dead mice and shit from sandwich bags of weed.
It's like ravaged by mold. Like just desiccated, just horrible. Like I would like more reporting on this because I would suspect there's like an actual weed body count associated with her drug dealing.
Oh my, yeah.
She may have sold shit so bad it killed someone.
People were getting diseases that like only existed in pre-industrial England because of her shitty weed. By the way, the farm thing made me think. It reminded me. My favorite boutique regional crank theory that I ever heard. I've talked about it a million times over 10 years on this show. It is the thing that cab driver told me in 2016 that Saad Hariri is actually King Fahd's son, and that Rafiq Hariri only made his fortune because King Fahd said, I will give you all these contracts if I can fuck your wife. And Rafiq Hariri said, sure, pal. I kind of like the theory a lot. Like the King Fahd and Saad have a similar side profile. I think there's a lot to it. I have just repeated this fact for all these years. Here's a new one. Here's one for the Western Hemisphere. And I think you'll really run with this one. If you're a teacher, tell your kids this. The younger, the better. Let's get them repeating this. Marie Glusenkamp Perez is Jair Bolsonaro's illegitimate daughter. They have a really similar brow line, similar eyebrows. They both grew up on farms doing God knows what. Weird affect. Marie, due to her mother not having a host of genetic disorders, seems to stay away from the hospital. But I think there's a lot of similarity there. And I think Jair has avoided Washington State because he feels kind of bad about it. But I think a young Jair, a dashing young Brazilian military officer who was a sort of lower middle management in the military dictatorship sometime in the 80s. He made his way to Washington State once for a fact-finding mission, and he just charmed the pants off some farm lady.
No, he went to Washington State for a failed military operation against orcas in Puget Sound, of which 12 of his comrades perished.
Yeah. This was like the fucking Battle of the Bulge for the Brazilian military.
Well, look, if she was just content with just being a mids dealer, like concentration camp Perez would be thoroughly unobjectionable to me. But I will just state this in the broader context of today's show. She voted to expand funding for ICE. She is a collaborator with the Nazi state. And I will just merely point out she was one of several politicians, Ezra Klein said, is the future of the Democratic Party. So we'll see how he backtracks on that over the next couple of weeks, if he says anything at all. But nothing but bad wishes to Marie Concentration Camp Perez. I hope she smokes some shit I hope she smokes a joint that's mostly bug larva.
Well, I hope she gets visited by another one of the great characters of our show, Matt Christman creation, Captain Freakout.
I was just going to say Captain Freakout.
I hope she's a prisoner in Captain Freakout's groovy prison. When we take power. Captain Freakout's still alive, by the way. Captain Freakout's 107. If you only smoke seeds, it's like, it's sort of like the Nation of Islam thing. You should read Captain Freakout's book, The Way to Smoke and Live.
I don't know. I'm not sure if Captain Freakout is still alive, but if you smoke seeds on the reg, he will visit you like the ghost of Christmas past.
Yeah, and he will have, whether he is a spirit or a living person, he will have custody over Mary Glusenkamp Perez. And I think, you were talking about how all these guys, they can't fit into society. I think if we get, American Free Officers Movement, again, this is our best possible case, our government made in our image, we will make Branson's idea of Ho Island. It will be a reality. And it's going to have to be a pretty fucking big island or peninsula, because it's going to have to house like 15 million Americans.
How about Florida? It's a peninsula, but I think it would suit those purposes, because 90% of the people currently living there are hoes and lizards.
It would cut down on transportation costs. I mean, I would like it to be separated by oceans, but if we can put like a wall up, fine.
Build that wall.
I don't like how close it is to Georgia. I think that's like, I love and respect the people of Georgia, especially Atlanta. I would love to get jumped into a twerking gang there, but this is kind of stupid. I was laughing about Jasmine Crockett being president, and she's like, it's like the Dennis Quaid Reagan movie, and it's like the big climax where she's running for re-election and no one thinks she can do it, and she's facing off in a town hall against Tony Dokapil, who's hosting it, and he's like, President Crockett, you said that 98% of men in Philadelphia are gay. You said 99% of men in Atlanta are gay. You said it's gay to order lemonade in a restaurant. We've crunched the numbers here at CBS. According to you, 53% of American men are gay. That's not possible. And then it like looks like her campaign's over. And then she goes, I bet you order Ferrero Rocher chocolates online. And it's just like the "there you go again" thing from the Reagan movie. And he's like, what? Why is it gay to order chocolates online? Even if I did, why would that matter?
Yes, I ordered dessert last night. Yes, I ordered desserts at restaurants.
I order lemonade. I have 3 kids. Everyone who calls him like DL Tony from there. Like, it's just, I think that, I hope she becomes president for that reason. I think she's horrible as a politician, but like as a person, I love her. I think she's great. And I thought it was so funny how people were like, lady, you suck. And she was like, oh yeah, well, if we're going to lose anyway, then why does it matter?
That was awesome.
Me do it.
That was awesome.
I wish she didn't, like, her beliefs didn't suck so much because she's so close to being like the perfect person. You know,
didn't like Bowen Yang and some other dude have to apologize to her for just like being like, yeah, I don't support her campaign. I think just some innocuous like critique of her as a politician.
A couple guys who order lemonade in restaurants, if you know what I mean. A couple of men who have breakfast out together.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of Tony Gokupil, Catherine's article about Tony and the Barry regime at CBS is up now at The Intercept. We'll put a link in the show description, but I would suggest everyone check that out because, by the way, Barry said there's an all-hands meeting tomorrow at CBS to determine the future of their news operation. So, quitting already? I mean, like, Kalshi, here's another parlay. Barry resigns tomorrow or steps back from running the news operation. And I would bet on that because, like, look, bloggers, podcasters, doing real work? No thanks. And I should know. We can smell our own.
I don't know. I feel like unfortunately, we've become very acquainted with Barry over the years. And I think, like, so CBS had, like, one good night because NBC News preempted the news so they could, like, show some basketball game or something.
Yeah, there was an NBA game on.
And all the people who are like, oh, does CBS suck now? And it's like, you know what? As long as all the other networks stop running news, they will do just fine. You're right. As long as they do that forever. But I do think like Barry is like a pompous enough person for this meeting to just be like, see? Check it. Look.
Yeah, I'm probably being a little too much whisk casting here on my part. But like I just said, I know the mentality. I know the type. I share it, whether it's Dan Bongino, Barry Weiss, or myself. Working a real job? No thanks.
Yeah, it's not for us.
I mean, I say that, but like, I am working on a snow day right now. I'd like to make that very, very clear. I hope all you hogs are happy. I had to go to the office today.
Yeah. I had to, do you know how many dead bodies I saw trudging to my computer?
It's like Everest.
None, but there could have been some.
It's like the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
Just frozen corpses everywhere. All right. Let's wrap it up for today's show, everybody. That's it. Till next time. Bye-bye.
You smoke good, correct?
Yes.
Fire?
No, Reggie, nothing above mids.
Can you explain this tweet from September 5th? I'm absolutely gone off that loud.
I consider mids loud. I get fully destroyed off half a hit of that booty shit.
I see. Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Your Honor.
The objection is noted.
And it is your contention that mids actually get you more fucked up?
That's correct, Your Honor.
At no point were you aware of what strain you were on, whether it was sativa or indica dominant?
To the best of my recollection, no, sir. It was merely that concrete